today we're going to talk about pests and diseases in your garden. First off, what are pests and diseases? Well, just like weeds, they get a really bad reputation, and I think it's a bit unfair because they actually do play a useful and valuable role in your garden. Pests and diseases attack plants that are less healthy than they could be. So a really healthy, strong, resilient plant living in healthy soil, in a healthy ecosystem environment, has everything it needs to defend against pests and diseases. It has a strong immune system, sends out pheromones to attract predators to those pests that might be attacking them. It can change the taste and the nutrients that are inside of its leaves in order to ward off pests or diseases. So plants aren't just defenseless against pests and diseases, they actually have the ability to defend against them. It's just when they're weak that they lose that ability. So what makes a plant weak could be one of three things. It could be its genetic disposition, it could be that it's been bred in such a way that it's dependent on people always fighting its diseases and pests for it. So think about that. If you've got a plant that you have always been defending the pests and diseases or fighting the pests and diseases yourself, the next generation is going to rely on you to keep fighting its pests and diseases for you. Whereas if you allow plants that are attacked to actually die or to have the opportunity to defend themselves, then your next generation is going to be stronger and strong enough to look after themselves. So that's number one, is the genetic disposition of a plant. The other is your soil, of course. Healthy soil gives that plant a healthier immune system and it gives it a better chance of surviving and thriving. And then more broadly, your general sectors and ecosystem. If you've got a balanced ecosystem with all the right plant pest predators and all of the right sectors acting on that plant, it's got the right amount of sun, it's got the right amount of water, and it's not being beaten by wind, you've got a much better chance of having a healthier plant. So really, when a pest comes in or when a disease comes in, it's a good opportunity to observe what's happening and try and see what's happening. Is it a genetic problem? Is it a soil problem? Is it a general sector problem? Or is it something else? Is it your ecosystem that's taking its time to balance out? And can you sacrifice this plant? That's always my first thought when I see something wrong, and my first advice is don't do anything actually. Just watch it play out, see what happens. It might be that that plant's able to defend itself, or it might be that that plant gets attacked and all of your other plants don't get attacked. It's a good opportunity to see if your companion planting is working well. Maybe you have barriers or borders between different crops, and that's a great chance to see that. And yeah, you get to see the whole life cycle of the pest or the disease, and you get to see if it is spreading or not. And if it's really spreading and taking over and you don't want to lose your whole crop, then fair enough, you're going to want to jump in and do something about it. But I'd say as a rule of thumb, the first thing to do is just observe. And ideally, you want to see these things happening as soon as possible, as soon as they happen. So you want to be out in your garden observing and checking these things and keep a close eye, because pests and disease do move fast if they're becoming a problem. So you want to see it day one, and you want to see how much it expanded or spread in day two so that you can stop it soon if necessary. Okay, so let's say you're kind of observing, you've decided that you actually want to do something about this pest. You don't want it to take over your garden. Alright, so I have another little acronym for us here, and that is HERO. You got to get out there and be a hero. Okay, so what is that? H, hands first. E, environment next. R, remedies. O, pull out. Okay, so the H, hands first, and that is because you're checking every day or at least every second day what's going on in your garden. You can spot those pests pretty early on, and the first thing to do to stop something really spreading or to just knock back a population of pests or of disease is just use your hands and pull those pests off the plants. easy, very easy to pull off slugs and snails, to pull off shield beetles or whatever other bugs are eating your plants, and very easy to squash aphids, very easy to pull the leaves off of diseased plants and to take them far away enough that they're not going to spread in the garden. So that's just using your hands, and you can actually make quite a big impact if you get plants early on and you start saving them a little bit. The next is E, environment. So check out what's happening in the environment. And the first thing is actually just make that soil a little bit stronger, boost that immune system. So whether you got worm juice or a little bit of compost, you can just lay it around the plant. If you got worm juice, you can cover it over the whole plant. Give it a good watering, and there you've already improved the environment of that plant. You've given it a better soil, an immune booster in the soil. So that's a really good little way to give it a quick, maybe a quick save. And the next is to look at what else is going on in the environment. Could it be another sector that's impacting on this plant? And if it is, now that you've seen the problem, do you want to do something about it? Is there something you can do right now, instantly, to save that plant? Is it providing it more shade or more protection from the wind? Is it clearing out some other plants that are growing nearby it that might be stealing from its nutrients or just encroaching on its ability to grow? So that's another thing, just looking at the environment, seeing if there's anything you can do now, or if it's just something that you can now learn and realize that next time you want to avoid that. Then you move into our remedies. So there are hundreds and thousands of concoctions and little brews that you can make at home with organic and often very safe and gentle ingredients, things either from your kitchen or from your garden. I'd say ideally look for the ones that are in your garden and avoid any soaps or any funny chemicals or anything like that, and try and always just do a gentle version, a light version. And if you find a concoction that really works or a remedy that really works, record it, write it down. And if you try one and it doesn't work, also write it down so that you know for next time not to waste your time. Now, I myself very rarely, if ever, use these remedies. I usually let plants become sacrificed. I let them just carry on their process, and oftentimes a pest or disease will actually come in. It will do its work on a certain plant, maybe get some of the unhealthy parts of the plant eaten down, and actually not affect the plant too much and allow it to carry on supplying a harvest for us. So generally I look at it like that. And that's another thing about companion planting, is sometimes you have a plant that becomes a trap crop. It might be that one of your plants was a little bit less healthy than the other ones because of its placement or because of its genetic disposition, and that becomes a bit of a trap crop, and all of the pests might go there and attack that plant, and your other plants actually stay relatively safe or relatively free of these pests. So it's actually, you've just got to observe these things sometimes. But we're on remedies, and that's fine. If you've moved to the point where you want to put a remedy in, great. Put it into work and see how it goes. The next step is O, and that is pull out. So you've found the pest, you've decided that you want to do something about it, you've gone through the H, you've tried putting your hands in first and doing something about it, or it's moving so fast that you know that just using your hands is not going to be enough. You've looked at the environment, you've given the soil a bit of an immune booster. That hasn't helped, or it's not acting quick enough compared to the rate at which these pests are spreading. And then you've gone into R, you've looked into remedies, and either you know that your remedies are not going to work fast enough, or you're not going to make them fast enough, or you've tried them and they're still not working. Then you're moving in through to pulling these things out. And yeah, very simply, it is pulling out all of the affected plants, and ideally all of the pests and disease that is with it, and either burning that, feeding it to some farm animals, some pigs or some chickens, or taking it way far away from your vegetable garden and putting it into a bush or forest or something like that, where it's not going to necessarily affect, full grown forest of trees or bush the same way that it would affect your vegetable garden. So In summary, pests and diseases are not villains. They're actually there for a reason, and they're just living creatures. And yes, if you keep defending your plants from year 1 to year 2, you're going to have to keep on defending them. Whereas if you're able to do less, over time the ecosystem will balance itself out, your plant genetics will get stronger and stronger, and they'll be able to look after themselves. So that's your first priority. The next is being a hero. Hands first, environment next, remedies next, and then finally pull out if none of that is working. So I hope this perspective helps you. I know it's quite different to the way that we usually look at pests and diseases, but I believe it is a really helpful way to look at things. So I hope that it helps you, and I hope that you enjoy it. I hope it also brings a few questions out. Send them through in the comments if you have any, and let us know what you think.